In yesterday's video, I gave you a Solana update and gave you the 3 steps that it needs to take before we can get incredibly bullish on the price, especially in the mid to long term. In today's video, I want to follow up with an overall price prediction where I believe Solana can go over the next 6 to 12 months and what I'm going to be doing because of it. And so with that said, we are of course starting right now. So as a quick recap of yesterday's video, I told you that there were 3 steps that Solana needed to take. First and foremost, it needed to break $24. Second of all, it needed to break this descending trend line that has been trapped within since May of last year. And then finally, it needed to break $27.33. Once we were capable of doing that, we would invalidate the possibility of this being some type of double top to the upside, which of course could force the price all the way back down to the low 10s. And so of course that would be incredibly bullish and a strong catalyst to say that Solana is actually entering into a new phase of its own cycle. So with that said, if it is capable of making those 3 steps, I'm under the belief that Solana could visit as high as $70 within the next 12 months. Now, the main thing that has caused me to believe this is the fact that Solana has now validated its long-term macro Fibonacci levels. Let me explain. So if you take a Fibonacci and you draw it from your all-time low back here in December of 2020 to your all-time high up here in November of 2021, what you can see here is that it creates a 618 to 786 Fibonacci box that sits at $8.42 to $3.32. Now, this is no coincidence that Solana just so happened to put the very bottom touch, this little bitty wick directly on that 618 level before it looks to actually continue back up into its cycle. Historically speaking, the 618 to 786 bucks is called the golden pocket, and the reason being is that it has a very strong history of rejecting prices back in the opposite direction, which is why they call it the key retracement level. When the price retraces, it will usually come back to this level before looking to then continue back in the direction that it was going. It's the bounce level, okay? So now that it has validated this bottom side 618 to 786, historically speaking, when we bounce off of the bottom side of a 618 to 786, we will usually return to the top side one. So if we clear everything off, let me show you where that is. So in a circumstance in which we bounce off of this 618 to 786 Fibonacci golden pocket, as I mentioned before, we will usually return to the top side one. In this example, the top side golden pocket is looking currently right around $70.52 to $126.28. I'm aiming for the bottom side of this range, not so much that top or that upwards of $100. I'm not really expecting that in the in the short term or midterm at all. So right now my goal and my focus is $70.52 because historically when we bounce off of one side to the downside, we will revisit the upside. So it is going to look like some type of range between golden Fibonacci levels. Let me show you what this could look like in this example. So when I draw on both of these zones, you can now see that it creates a range between these 2 pockets that we will have a strong tendency to bounce in between. So at this given point, it is no surprise that we are seeing some resistance where directly in between 2 massive points of resistance and support. So in my mind, if we're capable of breaking this 27 level and continuing this movement upwards, re-clearing and recapturing all of this price movement that we had before the FTX crash, we are directly in position to revisit back up towards the top side of the zone over the next 12 months, which could look like a move from this point forward of upwards of 180 to 200% to the upside. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in real close on the 4-hour charts and give you a smaller version of what these Fibonacci interactions look like, just to show you that this is the true chart history of Solana. So what we can see is, of course, we got this beautiful move to the upside, okay? Now, as we got this beautiful move to the upside, we knew the retracement's coming is probably going to revisit some of these lower levels. Let's draw on our Fibonacci retracements and see where this might go. As you can see here, we got this tiny little touch to the downside before looking to continue establishing some type of double bottom and looking for a movement to the upside. Well, some of you may ask, well, where did we put in resistance? Where did we run into some resistance before going back to the downside? Well, looky here. If we go from top to bottom, of course, we ran into this 618 to 786 zone, hit some resistance, and got forced back to the downside. Now, coincidentally, once we finally were able to break the 618 to 786 zone, we then saw a beautiful move all the way back up to this 1.272 Fibonacci extension. That says that we have restarted or reset our Fibonacci's, so now we need to adjust where they are. So now that we've reached this level and we need to adjust where they are, what we're going to do is drag it from this low to this high. And what can you see? What happened here? We start to get it the retracement and we bounced off of the 786 level looking to make a move to the upside. Now after that bounce, of course, we then came back down to retest that 618 level, and the moment we started to see these hard crashes was the moment we lost this 618 to 786 level. So as you can see, I'm not going to keep going on and on. As you can see, these levels are extremely important, especially when we are range bound. Now, some of you, of course, are going to ask, well, how is that going to look? I mean, is it going to be a straight shot? Is it going to take some time? And yes, I do believe it's going to take some time. We're going to get get our pumps, we're going to get our dumps. We're going to get our pumps, we're going to get our dumps. Who knows? Maybe these dumps look really bad, and then we really start to recapture. But I do believe this is going to happen. Now, obviously, if Solana as a whole blockchain goes down, that's a whole different story. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in the current environment we're in right now, right? Now, if you look at something like your weekly chart prime oscillator, this is a great example of why this is possible. As you can see here, we just came off of a green reversal triangle, 2 blue peak finders, another bullish reversal triangle, an oversold reading, a drive of bullish divergence, and 2 bullish momentum dots as we did come out of this bottom threshold. What this means is that Solana established an insane amount of support as it put in this low and this low. I honestly don't think we're going to go lower than we are right now, than this low that we have here. I think the bottom is in for Solana. Now, obviously, considering a black swan could happen, that changes everything. I'm talking about in this current environment. Now, as we've made this move towards the top side to hit this middle threshold between this 618 level and this 618 level, now that we are in the middle threshold, we can also see that our weekly chart prime oscillator is only at its 50% threshold. This goes to show that there is all of this room of opportunity. The same amount of room that it took from us to get from bottom side to 50% threshold is the same amount of room that we have to get from middle threshold to top side. And so as you can see here, if this thing is going to keep running in correlation with each other, we very well have the room necessary to get back up towards these $70 levels. And so overall, even if it does look ugly, even if it does look choppy, even if it's something that does look like this, I do believe that this move to 70 is going to happen over the next 12 months. And that is my price prediction of where this thing goes if we do continue to see the bullishness from the market that we have recently. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm not going to get too far ahead of myself. I'm not going to start longing on 100x leverage. I'm simply just going to dollar cost average in slowly but surely. My main dollar cost averages and my main accumulation will happen once we break $27.33. I still need to see that happen because at this point, again, this is still a threat. There is still the threat of rejection here, and we do not want to be buying right before a massive rejection to the downside, okay? So with that said, guys, I am under the belief that $70 is in target, and that is where I'm expecting Solana to go once we're capable of breaking 27.33, and remember, holding above it. Now, before we do go ahead and wrap up the video, I want to give you an update on something I posted a YouTube short about just a couple of days ago, which of course was Cradle of Sins, who is of course a sponsor of the channel. Now, in that video, I told you all about the various game modes that they were going to have, whether it be online battle arena, co-op action campaigns, architect conquest, etc. Now, one of the key things that I wanted to bring to you about them that I thought was unique and the reason why I might add some of their token to my own portfolio is the business model in which they are implementing going forward, because it is different than most. So what you can see here is that the Cradle of Sins game will not feature a play to earn business model like most of the current games we see in the blockchain field. The main reason for this is that we believe this system is very hard to sustain in the long term, mainly because of the volatility of the cryptocurrency markets, which influence the price of the currency that the game is using to pay players. So if that currency drops, then the game will experience a lot of their users leaving, which can in turn create even more side effects like the increase of matchmaking time, which can further negatively affect the game itself. So they decided that they wanted to take the approach of using the token itself as a bit of a representation of the game, and as they do start to receive profits from the game and all of their endeavors, they're going to buy back the token, of course fundamentally reducing the supply, and as long as demand remains rather the same, that does then fundamentally increase the value of the token, usually increasing the price of the token. So as you can see here, token buybacks will happen at the end of every quarter. U24 Solution Labs will use 25% of the profits generated by the Cradle of Sins game in order to buy the token on the open market. This feature will ensure the token will create a higher price floor over time. All the tokens obtained from the buyback operations will be publicly burned, which will create more scarcity and will ensure that the token remains deflationary over time. The value of the cause token derives from the success of the game. The more profits the company generates from the game, the more demand there will be for the token, and the more scarce it becomes because of the burns. We believe that using this model, our developers can focus on delivering a great product that will be mass adopted by VR and PC gamers. So I do believe that this is the correct approach that they should be taking. Many of these games that use the play to earn model simply just cannot sustain themselves and are quite Ponzi-like, at least in my opinion. And so considering the fact that they're approaching it from more of a corporate business perspective and using those profits to, inject it back into the overall value of the game rather than just giving it out to people, I do believe that's going to give them a big advantage and a big edge over the rest of this market, especially as we do start to see many of these other games come out. We got to remember, they just raised 1,800 BNB with 12 hours left in their pre-sale. There's a lot of hype about this, a lot of excitement about it, and it very well may be the way that people go about this going forward. So of course I wanted to present that to you and tell you why I very well may add it to my own portfolio. But with that said, that's going to be about it for today's video. I really wanted to give you an update on why I thought that Solana could hit $70 and why I thought that this was well within the realm of possibility. So let me know your own Solana price predictions down below, and I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow in another video. Peace.